Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. Well, the low of the morning now, 150 points gone on the bank Nifty, 100 gone on the mid cap. Nifty down 17. Nifty's been protected, of course, by TCS and Infosys. In fact, the entire IT pack, which is at the high point. Ashwani is back with us along with Mitesh. Ashwani, your thoughts on if this is some kind of a reversal or just a buying opportunity for the rest of the day? How would you approach the market from here on? And of course, your individual stock calls.
See, just on the issue of bond yield, global bond yields are also moving up. See, the sense so far is that the market is beginning, sort of a one-sided type decline. If you leave out IT, you should be much lower on the Nifty also. Even now, after 45 minutes, no sector has turned into positive other than IT. So let's hope IT can hold up the Nifty, but it's fairly clear that the banks and the financials and the mid caps, everybody who expected inflation to be lower, bond yields to fall, etc., that theory is now possibly getting debunked. So my sense is that this bank Nifty decline could get sharper, and at some point I think the IT rally may also see profit booking, because that's been continuing for a while. So sense is that you could have at least 100 more points on bank Nifty which could come off. Having said that, I think Bank of India is a sell with a stop of 110, target of 98. JSPL is a sell with a stop of 270, target of 245. And Havels is a buy with a stop of 550, target of 575.
Okay. Mitesh, good morning to you. What are you short on the indices and stocks?
No, I think the bank Nifty, has clearly broken down below the 25,000 mark. In fact, 24,960 is the 200 average. So we have added some shorts, and if we start getting another 30-40 points, we'll possibly add on to the short positions. Having said that, I in fact had a sell on Bank of India at about 107.5 mark, but I think the stock has already close to the target of around 100, so we'll avoid that call. TCS is also a buy, again that's moved up. Try to buy it around the 3,300, 3,290 zone in case you get it during the day. I think the stock, as I mentioned earlier also, 3,450 is the target which I think the stock will do over the next few days or couple of weeks. So that's the target, and your stop loss should be around 3,240.
In fact, all the metal stocks are falling quite a bit this morning now. So not just names like Bhushan Steel that are down about 5.5%, but even the large caps, Hindalco, GSPL, SAIL, Tata Steel, all down about 2 to 4%. Sandeep Bagle also joins in. Let's get some thoughts from him. Sandeep, now the market is falling some more. So ex of IT, it's actually quite a weak market. What are you doing on individual stocks?
Good morning, Sonia. I think the theme for the day should be buy IT on declines and sell banks. Very clear breakdown in banks. I would buy an NIT Tech a little late though, from the time I've given the call, but still some move is there. 945 stop loss, 972 target. And Union Bank is a good sell. Stop loss of 97, target of 91.
Okay, Ashwani, you are selling, of course, Jindal Steel. What about the rest of the metal pack?
I think the rest of the metal pack is also coming off. So on highs, on any sort of intraday rallies, Vedanta, etc., can also be sold, because globally metal prices have come off sharply. So I think metals will also have a fairly bad day today, and that was expected given 8-10% style rallies. Yesterday was the call that this happens post a rally only when things are kind of getting frothy.
Okay.
Yeah, Jindal Steel is actually now seeing quite a bit of decline. In fact, both Tata Steel and Jindal Steel. Yesterday, of course, we had that rally in Rebar, and today it looks like that's also perhaps could be reversing. So, big
Actually,
decline.
all metal stocks have been a little off color.
Yeah, you've been talking about it.
Yeah, and that's now showing in the stock prices as well.
All right. Well, let's thank our guests for joining us, right, and giving us this technical view. So two spaces that are under pressure this morning, metals and PSU banks. Big cracks coming in there. But let's move on. Under fire from foreign institutional investors, the Fortis board has now formed a panel for evaluation of binding bids by the 26th of April. Remember, we just spoke to Renuka Ramnath as well, who has joined the board now. Sandeep Parekh, the founder of FinSec Law Advisors, joins us now to talk about that. Sandeep, hi, good morning, and thanks for joining us. Considering that the credibility of the board was being questioned, do you think setting up of this advisory committee now takes some of the pressure off, and do you think that the minority shareholders could get a better deal now that this has moved into the hands of an independent evaluator?
Yes and no. So it'll really depend on the composition of this committee. Obviously, I think there have been lots of calls for resignation of at least some of the directors who've been close to the promoter family, which has now exited this company completely. So I think those issues remain, but at the same time now I think once so many bids have been received, I think people should be somewhat reassured that they will get into what is known as the Revlon duties based on a case law in the US, where once a company is for sale, they need to sell it to the highest bidder. So I think that should kick in, and I think the board of directors' fiduciary duty is really today to sell to the highest bidder. And of course, some money should come into the company as well, because I think there's a lot of promise in the company, but it's a capital intensive industry. So I think besides sale from existing shareholders, hopefully there will be capital infusion in the company, and of course an open offer if there's change of control.
Okay, well, good morning, Sandeep. The fact that the board itself is so depleted, how should one go about it? Should the board be expanded first? There's one shareholder one big shareholder who wants the board changed. Yesterday when Nisha spoke to Brian Tempest, he said, what makes you think the other shareholders want the board changed? And why should we listen to one guy, one large shareholder? How does one tackle this from a corporate governance point of view? It is definitely a very underrepresented and a very small board.
So see, essentially, absent any fraud currently happening, I think the shareholders get to decide really who they want as board members. So this will have to be, this will have to be taken to an shareholder meeting, AGM, where names will come probably from there are multiple large institutional investors in this company. So I'm sure they will have their nominees, plus of course it will be put to the vote. So shareholder democracy ultimately will decide who are the new directors. But certainly for a company which is going to be virtually rescued, which will have capital infusion, which will have change of promoters, I think it's probably a good time to have a robust board in place. And of course, once the new promoters do come in, certainly there'll be another kind of change of guard in terms of the composition of the board.
So what should the steps be? While this special committee is vetting all the proposals they have got, should the current depleted board seek shareholder approval and ask how the board should be rebuilt? Is that what you're recommending? Or should they just continue, because anyway a new promoter is going to come?
Yes, so I really don't know the composition of this committee, but if it's a credible composition, I think they should go ahead with the sale, because right now it's mainly selling to the highest bidder really. Because I think all the bidders are kind of credible people. So my guess would be it should in fact go with whichever is kind of the numerically superior bid. So I mean they have a limited role to play. I think the only kind of caution is if there is some mischief being played, certainly the board should change if there are people like that. But otherwise, I think the existing board should be well qualified to do. It's a very limited role today. It's not. The role is not to run the company or expand the company. Their role is right now to kind of infuse capital, have a orderly transition, so that new promoters come in and there's a new board of directors after that point of time. So again, my answer would depend on who the current board members are, what is their comfort with the general investor community, and finally whether they're kind of well qualified to do the limited role of selling the company.
Okay. So you don't think at this point Fortis needs an absolutely new board?
No, certainly not an absolutely new board, but if, as I said, if the directors the large institutional investors are not comfortable with, maybe those should not be part of this decision making, and at some point, they will anyway have to go once the new shareholder comes in.
Okay. Well, just a final question. What is your thought on the way in which the SR Steel sale is progressing in the NCLT? Now the NCLT is questioning why should a second bid have been, round of bids have been invited at all. Just your thought on that, whether NCLT is going to successfully get us any money, or this is becoming a fine legal battle?
Yes. So one kind of interesting similarity between both these cases, Fortis and this one is, there are a lot of bidders.
Yes.
So you had round one bidders, then you had round two bidders, and so it's a good thing. It's a happy kind of outcome if you look at it from an economic perspective. It's because there will be good valuation, there'll be kind of high bids, and people will in this particular case the corporate lenders will be quite happy because they'll get the best outcome in terms of the highest bids.
All right.
My own kind of again, the court is set aside. Court has set aside the second bid, which is kind of based on a legal interpretation of this whole new section 29A, which is itself open to a lot of interpretations. So I think maybe they'll need to strengthen the language to kind of exclude undesirable people, at the same time kind of not make it so technical that all kinds of people get excluded. So ultimately I think it'll be a call between reopening the first bid, which is unlikely in my case. I think the equitable thing would be to have a third round really, in which first round and second round everybody can compete. That will be best in terms of the, from an economic perspective, not from a legal perspective, but from an economic perspective, I think if everybody gets to compete, I think the maximum value will come out of that third bid.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. That's a whole new discussion, and we can have it on another day. Thank you very much, Sandeep Parekh, for joining us with your thoughts on the Fortis issue in particular. Here's a bit more on Fortis. Our colleague Nisha Podar chatted with Brian Tempest, the director of the board. Listen into a slice of that conversation.
We have very clearly got a binding offer which came from Manipal, because that is the first deal, and that's the one, the contractual terms that we signed. And you will also be aware that we also have an offer that came from the Dabo Hero Honda family combined, and that had got associated with it no due diligence. So that is also a binding bid. So what we're saying is that whatever is the binding bids that are available with us on the 25th of April, when the advisory committee actually sits down, those are the ones that we will actually focus on, and the best one from there will be sent to us the next day on the 26th to the board meeting of Fortis Healthcare, and then it will go to the shareholders.
Well, Brian, the other names like IHH and Fosun are global big names. Do you not think that they should be given time for due diligence till 25th of April to really come up with a binding offer?
Actually, I think now is the time to focus the management of Fortis on the performance of making the hospitals more efficient and improving the results of the Fortis business. And I think now is the time to make sure that they're not distracted by financial issues or by these transaction issues, and we want to come to a conclusion. So the plan is, as we've mentioned, we're going to focus on the binding bids which are there. We've now got some binding bids that have improved, so it's not only the original binding bid, but it's got an improved binding bid, and these are the ones that are actually going to be considered on the 25th by the advisory committee.
The shareholders have really questioned the legitimacy of the board, and they have also said that this board should be dismantled and new independent directors should be on the board of Fortis Healthcare. Given this scenario, how much do you think your decision will go down well and pass the muster of these shareholders? Well,
Eastbridge is, as I mentioned, is a very valuable shareholder of Fortis. And as its shareholding is over 10%, then they clearly have the right to ask for an emergency extraordinary general meeting, and they to put their case in front of the shareholders. But from our side, I mean, I believe that the board is actually acting in all the interests of the shareholders, the staff and the patients of Fortis Hospitals, and that we will be progressing to a good product, for a good end decision for the company. And whilst that particular shareholder with 10% wishes to express his point of view, I think that the greater community will actually see the benefit that our decisions are going to make for Fortis.